Let's see if this works. Hi guys, so right now is a really weird time. The more people that I speak to about it, the more strange and bizarre this kind of lockdown period is. And because we're all stuck indoors at the moment, one thing that I've really found has helped has been ticking off my Goodreads list of the books that I've been wanting to read forever. So even though I've found it really difficult to be productive in a work sense and to be creative, because being indoors, there's something about it that's so stuffy and weird that you find limiting, and it puts a limit in a way on my creative brain. But the one thing that I can do to expand that brain and those horizons is to read and to watch other people's stories. But reading has really helped. What I decided to do was to make this video. And this is going to be a lockdown diary of sorts. I'm kind of just making it for myself, but if anyone else tunes in, hi, nice to see you here. So I'm just going to be talking about the different books that I've been reading. So part one will be the books that I've already read in lockdown, and I'll hopefully do part two, which will be books that I'm planning to read. I'm just going to go through them one by one and talk a bit about them, whether I like them, whether I didn't, and maybe this will help you decide if you want to read them during lockdown, if you want to read along with me, if there's anything that you want to share about the books that you've been reading, let me know in the comments down below. So let's see, what shall I talk about? I'll start with 3 books actually. So I've got 3 books that are quite similar in a way. We've got these 3 books here. I kind of want to talk about them together because they've got really similar themes in a way. They're quite different stories, but they are similar in terms of their setting. So I think I'll start with the first one that I read, which is actually probably the first book I read in lockdown, and that's Once Upon a River by Diane Setterfield. Now this book I rated probably a 4 or a 5 stars. It's really gripping. It's kind of a mystery with a Victorian setting, and it's got some really compelling characters. So I'll read the synopsis so you get a little sense of what it's about. It was the longest night of the year when the strangest of things happened. In an ancient inn on the Thames, the regulars are entertaining themselves by telling stories when the door bursts open and in steps an injured stranger. In his arms is the drowned corpse of a child. Hours later, the dead girl stirs, takes a breath, and returns to life. Is it a miracle? Is it magic? And who does the little girl belong to? I think what drew me to it was one of the quotes on the back as well, says, infused with the spirit of Jane Eyre, Rebecca, and the Woman in White. I'm a big fan of Jane Eyre and Rebecca, but I wouldn't say that this has the same kind of tone as those books. It just has that central mystery driving it, kind of like Rebecca does, for example. What I really liked about it was there's kind of an element feeling like there's maybe some magic behind the tale, there's something supernatural going on, but at the same time there are always real scientific explanations for what happens. I really enjoyed Diane Setterfield's writing in terms of it keeping you hooked. She constantly has these little cliffhangers at the end of her chapters that really make you want to read on. But then she does that thing of undercutting it and going back to a different part of the story just as you want to hear, you know, the resolution to this part of the story. But I didn't find that irritating. I found it really compelling. She knows about storytelling. She's deliberately playing with the genre of storytelling in this, and how we tell stories to each other and how we pass stories on. There are storyteller characters in the book, and that's quite a deliberate part of it, about what is real and what is the better story, and what people tell each other versus what really happened. There's also an awareness for a book set, you know, in a Victorian age. There are characters of colour. I liked that it wasn't just, you know, another white period drama. I definitely recommend this one. Next I've got the one that I read next, which is The Murder of Harriet Monkton by Elizabeth Haynes. Now, I've grouped this one together with Once Upon a River and the next book that I'm about to talk about, because this is also a Victorian-esque kind of setting. This one does have a central mystery involved and is told from multiple perspectives. This is about a real-life murder of a woman called Harriet Monkton that is to this day has remained unsolved. And what Elizabeth Haynes has done is she did a lot of research about Harriet, and she looked into the inquest, into what happened in the investigation, and she has fictionalized it. So she's written from the perspective of some of the suspects involved in the murder and also has hypothesized her own solution to who murdered Harriet and why. It's a chunky book. It's how many pages? 509 pages. But it kept me gripped, and to take the perspectives of the suspects as well, without giving away if any of them did it, was quite clever and kept you hooked and kept you looking for clues within the narrative. It does feature a unrequited female-female romance, which again is quite something you may not often see in a Victorian setting, which I really enjoyed. What else to say about this one? It had a bit in the middle that made me gasp. Just the title of a chapter that just made me go and pulled the rug out from under everything you think is going to happen. And I really enjoyed that part, and I think that shows how gripping some of this is. So I think I also gave this maybe a 4 or 5 stars. Some of the things I maybe didn't enjoy so much is there is one character who is intentionally quite a slimy and horrible character, and reading from his perspective at times feels icky. There is a danger of, you know, getting to the point of sexualizing dead, tortured, murdered, raped women, which I really bloody hate in narratives. But I think the reason why it didn't diminish the quality of the book for me was because that particular character is meant to be a horrible, slimy, awful character. And I don't think you're meant to empathise or relate to his point of view. Just to be aware of that, if you do want to read it, there are some quite pervy perspectives in this book, which you may not like. Finally, in my trio of Victorian mysteries is The Binding by Bridget Collins. Now this one I really, really loved. This is a definite 5-star read for me. It's so beautiful. The difference between this one and the last two is this isn't a murder mystery or some intrigue about a missing person. This is more of a Victorian world that has a magical realism or kind of almost sci-fi concept at the centre of it. I don't want to give away too much because the concept is so strong in this, and I didn't want to read the summary because I read the summary before I read the book, and it gave away something that happens about halfway through the book that I wish I didn't know about. So I'm going to be careful how I word this. It's set in a world where books are not what they are in our world. They contain the memories of other people, and bookbinders are in charge of taking those memories and storing them within the book. And once those memories are taken from the person, they don't remember them anymore. Our main character, whose name I've forgotten, but I'm going to remind myself, Emmett. Our main character, Emmett Farmer, has a natural talent for bookbinding, and he is chosen by a mysterious bookbinding lady to join him as her apprentice. And the story goes from there, really, and it's about a mystery as well, in a way, that going on in Emmett's life that we follow, and going on with the woman that he apprentices himself to. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. I don't want to give away too much, but it has a relationship at the centre of it that I did not expect going into this, that was really touching and gorgeous and made me cry. It has some, you know, LGBT elements again, which is really awesome for a novel set in a kind of fictional Victorian-esque world. The characters were just beautiful. The concept was just gorgeous. She describes so lovingly the way that these books are bound, and the tools that they use. Okay, so my camera died, but I will wrap up quickly. This is a beautiful book, beautiful characters, beautiful setting, beautifully written. I would 100% recommend it to anyone if you like the sound of it. The Binding by Bridget Collins is 5 stars. Okay, so the next book that I have to talk about is also a 5-star read. I absolutely loved this. This is Girl, Woman, Other by Bernadine Evaristo. This book is just seminal, and there's a reason why it co-won the Booker Prize with Margaret Atwood's book, which I haven't read yet, but there is a reason why this is a deserved winner and everyone should read it. It's from the perspective of, I think, about 12 different black British women who all lead quite different lives. They're from different generations, different eras, and just tells their stories very simply from their perspectives, and they're all kind of loosely connected in a certain way to each other, some more closely than others. It's really beautifully done, it's really cleverly woven in together. There's a lot of LGBTQ themes in this one as well. It follows a lot of lesbian black women from Britain and some who aren't as well. It's just beautiful. Beautiful story. It's a really important book, I think, as well, in examining systematic racism, in examining how racism, gets passed down through the generations and affects each and every one in different ways, but still that the effects are rippling through time of slavery, basically, and of the atrocities committed against people of colour. It's really beautiful, really poignant, really relevant. I think everyone should read this book. I enjoyed it, 5 stars. Next up is another classic of literature. This is Fun Home by Alison Bechdel. Some of you might have heard of the Bechdel test. She basically invented it. So the Bechdel test is when a film or a book or a story, you test to see if it has 2 female characters in it. Are they named? And do they ever have a scene together where they talk about something other than a man? You'll be surprised how few films pass this test. How few pieces of art generally pass that test. And she put it in one of her cartoons to kind of make a point about the lack of, not only the lack of representation of women in media generally, but also the lack of any kind of lesbian representation as well. This book is incredible. It's a graphic novel, I should say. Its Fun Home is short for Funeral Home, which was the home that her father and mother ran, and where she grew up in the Fun Home. It's kind of also a pun on the fact that her family was very troubled, and she talks about coming to terms with her sexuality, about learning and discovering that she's gay, coming out to her parents, and also finding out as a teenager that her father himself is gay. So it's a really beautiful story, father and daughter, her family, and it's really poignant, touching, funny. The illustrations themselves are absolutely beautiful. I love how she intersperses literature as well. She's studying literature at the same time, so there are a lot of kind of literary references in there as well, because it's the way that she connects with her father. Everything ties into that relationship and that story. And if any of you are fans of the musical as well, I think if you haven't checked out the original, you definitely should. So, finally, I've only got 2 books left. Sorry, I've been rambling on for quite a long time. But next we've got Normal People by Sally Rooney. Now, I read this as part of a group read-along with a book club that I'm a part of, and with very mixed responses from people. I personally really enjoyed this one. I gave it, I think, 4 stars. It's about this couple with a kind of on-again, off-again relationship. This young adult story. They've recently made it into a BBC adaptation, which I haven't seen yet. But let me know if you'd like to hear my opinions on that, maybe in comparison to the book. I felt like it was sparsely written, but in a good way, that it got to the heart of things, that it was very observational and very accurate in those observations. It talks a lot about mental health and what it means to be a young person and a lost young person. And maybe that kind of resonated with me a lot, and that's why I really enjoyed it. I do know that there are criticisms of this book in terms of its fetishization of abuse. Is what some people, I think, have said, and the opinion that I've seen. I'm personally not sure about that. I didn't see that the first time that I read it, but I can see that as a criticism of it. So if that's something that is potentially triggering for you, maybe give this one a miss. Or I've heard that the series maybe handles it more sensitively than the book does. But this is an interesting one. I enjoyed it. I think I saw the very flawed 2 main characters and saw the potential for them to learn from their flaws and to learn. What I really loved about it also was the feeling that both of these characters are very self-conscious about their own issues and their own problems around being very socially self-conscious for one of the characters, and around feeling very worthless and with very low self-esteem for another character. And I felt like there are a lot of people who experience both of those things, and that maybe think that they are somehow alien or strange or different from other people. And it being called normal people, I think, just underlined that no, this happens to everyone. You're not alone. That everyone at some point in their lives will go through similar thoughts and experiences, and that it's okay to be young and confused, and you'll work it out. So I still haven't made my mind up about this one really, but let me know what you think if you've read it in the comments down below. And finally, I've got The Song of Achilles by Madeleine Miller, which I just finished yesterday. I've also read her other book, Circe. They're both adaptations of Greek myth. They kind of modernise the language of the story and write it as a modern novel, and telling kind of their real story behind the myth, as it were. This is kind of a retelling from the perspective of Patroclus, who was Achilles' famous friend, or as this book goes into more detail about, you know, that they were in a relationship. So it's a really beautiful perspective from that way. I just find her read so easy to read. She is a little bit, in places, I find a little bit melodramatic, a little bit almost verging on fan fiction-y in the way that she dramatizes moments and makes them very emotional and big. And so I suppose her subject matter of Greek myth suits that, because it is already a larger-than-life setting. It is already a setting where magic exists, where gods and demons exist. So this kind of slightly heightened feeling suits that. So I really enjoyed it. I would probably also give this one 4 stars. It didn't hit me emotionally as much as I wanted it to, but again, I find her just such an easy read, such an absorbing read, and I really enjoyed Song of Achilles. So great. Okay, I actually do have 2 more books that I've read, but this is getting to be quite a long video. Okay, so that's come to the end of my wrap up of the things that I've been reading so far in lockdown. Hopefully you found some of this interesting. If you're interested in hearing about the books, I almost gave you a spoiler, in hearing about the books that I am planning to read next month and during the rest of the lockdown, let me know, because hopefully that will be the next video that comes out. And if there's anything else you want me to talk about or read and let you know if they're any good, let me know. Thanks so much for watching and for making it this far. If you did, maybe consider giving this a like. I don't know if anyone will watch this at all, so it'd be nice to know if people liked it. And thank you very much. Bye.